If you'd told me 5 years ago that I'd one day be Googling how to boil water properly, I would have laughed in your face. But that's exactly where I was that Tuesday night, standing in my shiny suburban kitchen in Austin, Texas, staring at a pot of noodles that somehow looked like wet paper towels. Seriously, Elena? Ryan said from the dining table, raising an eyebrow. Did you forget to put salt? Or is this your new detox recipe? I gripped the wooden spoon tighter. I could feel the heat from the stove mixing with the heat climbing up my neck. I followed the recipe, I said, trying to sound calm. Maybe your taste buds are broken, he laughed. That low, teasing laugh that used to make my heart flutter when we were dating but now just made me want to throw the entire pot at his head. Sweetheart, he said, smirking, my mom's spaghetti has flavor. This tastes like, I don't know, revenge. I froze. That word, revenge. The way he said it, like it was a joke. Like my effort meant nothing, hit harder than he could imagine. I smiled tightly. Maybe it is revenge, he chuckled again, but this time I didn't. When Ryan and I got married 3 years ago, he used to say I made him feel like the luckiest man alive. We were one of those Instagram couples, cute, goofy, always laughing over burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. But somewhere between his promotions, my late-night freelance deadlines, and our silent dinners in front of Netflix, the laughter faded. I'd never been much of a cook. But I tried. I really did. And every time something went wrong, a sauce too salty, a chicken too dry, he had a comment, you're cute. But the kitchen just isn't your natural habitat. Maybe order takeout next time, huh? Don't worry, my mom can show you how it's done. Each little joke chipped away at me. Quietly, invisibly, that night, after his revenge comment, something inside me snapped, but not in the dramatic movie way. No screaming, no crying. Just a quiet, burning decision. Fine, you think my cooking tastes like revenge? Let's make it really taste like revenge. The next morning, I woke up early, determined. I packed his lunch like the perfect wife, smiling sweetly as I handed him a thermos of soup I had carefully seasoned with an extra pinch of bitterness and a lot of cayenne. Wow, he said, slipping on his jacket. Homemade lunch. You're spoiling me, always, I said, blowing him a kiss that almost hid the smirk tugging at my lips. When he texted me at lunchtime, soup was something. You trying to kill me or toughen me up? I replied with a heart emoji. For the next few days, I turned dinner into a battlefield only I knew existed. Undercooked rice, overcooked meat, mysterious spice levels. Each bite was my quiet protest, my way of saying, if you can mock it, you can eat it. But here's the thing about revenge, it feels satisfying at first. Then it starts tasting bitter. One night, I caught Ryan watching an old video of his mom teaching him how to make chicken pot pie. He laughed softly to himself, the way he hadn't laughed with me in weeks. And suddenly, my anger felt smaller than I wanted it to. Was this really what I wanted? To win a petty kitchen war? Or did I just want him to see me again, not as the girl who couldn't cook, but as the woman who used to make him smile for no reason? The turning point came a week later, on a Thursday. Ryan walked in, loosened his tie, and said, so, guess what? Mom's visiting this weekend. I froze mid-stir. Your mom? Yeah, she misses us. And she said she can't wait to taste your famous cooking. My stomach dropped. Famous? The man had just declared me a domestic disaster 2 nights ago. I forced a smile. Oh, that's great, he grinned, completely oblivious. You'll impress her. I know you will, as he kissed my cheek and walked upstairs. I looked down at the bubbling pot of half-burned soup. This was it. Judgment Day, and deep down, I already knew whatever happened next wasn't going to end well. If hell had a waiting room, it would look exactly like my kitchen that Saturday afternoon. The oven was preheating, my anxiety was boiling, and my husband's mother, Linda the unshakable, was on her way. I'd only met her a few times since our wedding, but every visit felt like an interview for a position I'd already failed. She was the kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and made every sentence sound like a polite insult wrapped in a smile. Last time she came, she'd looked around our house and said, oh, how cozy. It reminds me of Ryan's college apartment. Except he kept that cleaner. That was 3 years ago. I'd been preparing for this rematch ever since. Ryan was in the living room humming, blissfully unaware that his wife was losing her mind trying to turn boxed mac and cheese into something that screamed homemade. I'd even Googled how to make food look fancier. Apparently, parsley can make anything look expensive. Elena. Babe, relax, Ryan said, walking into the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, charming smile on. She's gonna love whatever you make. I gave him a look that could have frozen lava. Ryan, your mother thinks Martha Stewart is an underachiever. If she sees one lump in this sauce, she'll call a priest. He laughed, kissed my forehead, and said, it's just dinner. No, I thought. It's Judgment Day. The doorbell rang exactly at 6 because of course it did. Linda was never late. When I opened the door, there she was, perfectly pressed. Perfume so strong it probably had its own zip code. "Elena, darling," she said, holding out a casserole dish. "I brought my famous green bean bake just in case, just in case." "Of course, thank you, Linda," I said, smiling through clenched teeth. She stepped inside, scanning the living room like a home inspector. "Oh, you changed the curtains. Much better." The last ones made the place look a bit sad. I swear, if sarcasm burned calories, I'd have had ABS by then. Dinner started out okay. I'd set the table perfectly, candles, wine glasses, even folded napkins like I'd seen on Pinterest. The food looked mostly edible. But the moment Linda took her first bite, I knew I was doomed. She froze mid-chew, blinked twice, and then smiled the way flight attendants do before the plane crashes. She said softly. "Interesting flavor profile." Ryan looked up. "You like it, Mom? It's bold," she said, reaching for her water glass. "Very avant-garde." "Did you use cumin?" "No," I said quietly. "That was cinnamon." "Oh," silence. "The kind that makes even the silverware nervous." I could feel my face burning. I wanted to crawl under the table. Ryan cleared his throat and tried to lighten the mood. "It's okay, babe. Everyone experiments once in a while." Linda smiled sweetly. "Of course, dear. Cooking takes practice." Though Ryan always loved a traditional touch. "Remember my chicken pot pie, sweetie?" Ryan chuckled. "How could I forget? Yours is unbeatable." My stomach twisted. It wasn't jealousy, it was humiliation. I'd been trying to prove myself, and instead, I'd handed her victory on a shiny silver platter. After dinner, I insisted on cleaning up while they chatted in the living room. I could hear their voices through the open doorway, soft at first, then sharper. "She tries hard," Ryan said. "I'm sure she does," Linda replied. "But a woman should take pride in running her home. That's what keeps a man happy." My heart clenched. Pride, that word again. I stared at the sink full of dishes, the burnt pan, the cinnamon-scented chicken that mocked me from the counter. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry, I felt small. Later that night, after Linda finally left with a "we'll work on your cooking together next time, dear," I sat at the kitchen table staring at my reflection in the dark window. Ryan came over, rubbed my shoulders and said, "Hey, don't let it get to you. She's just old-fashioned." I looked up at him. "Do you think she's right?" He hesitated. "Just a second." "But it was enough, maybe." "A little," he said gently. "You don't really enjoy cooking. That's okay. It's just, you could try harder, try harder." The words hit like a slap wrapped in kindness. He kissed my forehead and went upstairs, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the lingering smell of cinnamon chicken. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every joke, every comment, every smirk replayed in my head like a cruel highlight reel. Maybe pride really had gotten in the way. Maybe I'd been so busy proving I didn't need to be the perfect wife that I'd forgotten why I wanted to be one in the first place, to make us happy. So right then, at 2:17 a.m., I opened my laptop and searched online cooking classes for beginners. And just like that, without telling anyone, I enrolled. Not for him, not for his mother, for me. If guilt had a smell, it would probably be burnt garlic. That's what my kitchen smelled like the next morning as I tried to follow an online tutorial titled "How Not to Ruin Eggs," a beginner's guide. The instructor's name was Madison, a perky woman with pink hair and way too much confidence for someone who made a living flipping omelets on camera. "Remember," she chirped, "the secret to great cooking is patience and love." "Yeah," I muttered, scraping half-cooked eggs off the pan. "And fire insurance." For the next few weeks, my kitchen became my classroom. I'd wait until Ryan left for work, then pull out my laptop, apron, and notebook like some undercover agent in a culinary mission. Every lesson felt like a tiny rebellion, except now, the enemy wasn't Ryan, it was me. I started learning the basics, knife skills, seasoning, timing. Who knew salt actually did something other than raise blood pressure? And don't get me started on how long I thought chicken needed to cook. Let's just say the CDC would have been disappointed in me. The first time I made something edible, real edible food, I almost cried. It was just tomato soup, but it was smooth, rich, comforting. I dipped a spoon in, tasted it, and smiled like an idiot. "This," I whispered, "does not taste like revenge." That night, I served it to Ryan without saying a word. He took one bite, blinked, then looked at me. "Oh," he said, "this is actually good, thanks," I said, shrugging casually even though my heart was doing somersaults. He didn't ask if I'd ordered it. I didn't offer to tell him. The next few days were different. Ryan came home earlier. We started eating at the table again, talking about random things: the neighbor's new puppy, the broken coffee machine at his office, how Austin traffic was getting worse every year. It felt almost like the old days. But I still couldn't forget the humiliation of that dinner with his mom. So every night, after Ryan went to bed, I stayed up practicing. Sometimes I'd burn a dish so badly it set off the smoke alarm. Sometimes I'd laugh until I cried watching Madison say things like "don't fear the butter." And sometimes I'd just sit on the floor surrounded by pots and pans, thinking about how something as simple as cooking could make me feel strong again. One evening, after a particularly disastrous attempt at lasagna, I got a message from Madison, my online instructor. "Hey, Elena, you've been submitting practice photos, right? You're improving fast. You ever think about taking the advanced class?" I stared at the screen, smiling. Advanced class, me? The woman who once set toast on fire in a microwave? I typed back, "Sure. Why not?" A few weeks later, I noticed something changing, not just in the food, but in me. Cooking wasn't about proving something anymore. It was quiet, therapeutic. The kitchen had become my place of peace instead of pressure. I started humming while chopping vegetables. I learned the perfect way to flip pancakes. I even found joy in cleaning up afterward, something old me would have sworn was impossible. It wasn't about being the perfect wife anymore. It was about being me, someone who could fail, laugh, learn, and keep going. Then, one Friday night, Ryan walked in holding a grocery bag. "Guess what?" he said, grinning. "Mom's coming next weekend." My hands froze mid-stir. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "Nope, she wants to see us again and she said she's dying to try your cooking after last time." Last time. Those two words echoed like a curse. Ryan didn't notice the panic flashing across my face. "She said she'll bring her famous pie again, but I told her you've got dinner covered. You're gonna crush it, sure, or burn the house down." After he went upstairs, I just stood there staring at the counter. For a minute, the old bitterness crept back, in the humiliation, the hurt, the anger. But then I took a deep breath. No, not this time. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. Not to impress Linda, not even to prove Ryan wrong. This time, I was cooking for me. For the woman who had once been laughed at and humiliated, and who'd decided to rise anyway. Apron on, spatula in hand, that night, I opened my laptop again. "Welcome back, chefs." Madison's cheerful voice echoed through my headphones. "Tonight we're making something special, roasted chicken with garlic cream sauce." I smiled, tightening my ponytail. "Bring it on, Madison," I whispered. "This time, I'm ready." And as the scent of fresh herbs filled the kitchen, I realized something beautiful. Maybe revenge didn't always have to taste bitter. Sometimes it could taste like healing. The week leading up to Linda's visit felt like training for the culinary Olympics. Every night after work, I practiced one dish until it was perfect. Roasted chicken? Nailed it. Mashed potatoes? Smooth as silk. Dinner rolls? Okay, those were still a little weirdly shaped, but edible, which was already a personal record. I even made a playlist to cook to. Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, Stronger, you name it. My kitchen wasn't just a kitchen anymore. It was my arena. And this time, I was going to win. Saturday morning arrived like the final exam you both dread and crave. Ryan was relaxed as ever, scrolling through his phone while sipping coffee. "You seem calm," I said, whisking sauce like my life depended on it. He looked up, smirking. "Because I am calm. Mom loves you. She just has high standards," I said. "Ryan, she once said Gordon Ramsay was too emotional in the kitchen." He laughed. "You're overthinking this." Maybe I was. Or maybe he was underestimating how much emotional trauma cinnamon chicken had caused me. At exactly 5:58 p.m., the doorbell rang. 2 minutes early. Because of course it did. I wiped my hands, checked my hair, and opened the door with a smile that felt glued on. "Linda. So good to see you, Elena, darling," she said, stepping inside with that familiar cloud of perfume and authority. "You look radiant." "Oh, I brought my pie again." "You don't mind, do you?" "Of course not," I lied smoothly. "We'll have it for dessert," she smiled, scanning the dining table like a general inspecting her troops. Candles, flowers, linen napkins. Everything perfect. She looked impressed, which terrified me even more. Dinner started off surprisingly peaceful. Ryan poured wine, I served the chicken, and Linda actually said, "This looks beautiful." I nearly fainted on the spot. She took her first bite slowly, dramatically, as if auditioning for a soap opera. Then she paused, chewed, swallowed. "Elena," she said softly, "this is wonderful." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, "It's wonderful," she repeated, smiling for real this time. "Perfectly seasoned, moist. You've really outdone yourself." Ryan grinned proudly. "Told you she'd crush it." For the first time in years, I felt something warm bloom in my chest that wasn't anger. It was pride, but the good kind. As dinner went on, the conversation flowed easier than I expected. Linda actually laughed at one of my jokes. Ryan kept bragging about how Elena's been experimenting in the kitchen lately. And I didn't even roll my eyes. Everything was perfect until Linda set down her fork and said, "You know, I have to confess something. Here it comes," I thought. "The plot twist," she sighed. "I was worried about you two after my last visit. You seemed distant. But seeing you tonight, laughing, cooking together, it's nice." Ryan reached over and squeezed my hand. "We've been working on it," Linda smiled at me. "It shows. You've grown, Elena. I was probably too hard on you before." And just like that, every sarcastic comeback I'd ever prepared vanished. After dinner, we sat in the living room with pie and coffee. Linda talked about her late husband, how she used to burn his dinners, too. "He was patient," she said softly, eyes misty. "I used to get so frustrated trying to be perfect. But love isn't about perfection. It's about trying again, together." Something in my chest twisted. All this time, I'd seen her as this cold, impossible woman, but maybe she was just protecting something fragile. When she left later that night, she hugged me for the first time ever. "Thank you for dinner, dear," she whispered. It reminded me of home, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't a redemption dinner. It was a reconciliation one. After we cleaned up, Ryan leaned against the counter, grinning. "Okay, admit it, you were amazing." I rolled my eyes. "Maybe a little." He stepped closer. "Seriously, Elena, I'm proud of you," I laughed. "You should be proud of us. You survived my cooking phase," he smiled. "Yeah, but you know what I realized tonight?" "What?" He leaned in and kissed me. "I missed this. Not the food, the way you look when you're passionate about something." I laughed softly. "You're just saying that because you're full." "Maybe," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "But I mean it. You've changed." Maybe I just remembered who I was. Later that night, as I loaded the last dish into the dishwasher, I caught my reflection in the window again, the same spot where I'd once sat feeling small and defeated. But this time, the woman staring back at me looked proud. The kind of pride that doesn't destroy love, the kind that helps rebuild it. A week after the redemption dinner, something in the house felt lighter, not just the air, us. For the first time in years, there was no tension clinging to the walls. No invisible distance sitting between us at breakfast. Ryan and I had found our rhythm again. It wasn't the same as before. It was slower, more real. Like we'd finally stopped pretending everything was perfect and started actually living together again. It started small. He'd come home from work, peek into the kitchen and say, "What's on the menu tonight, Chef Elena?" And I'd smirk, toss him a spoon and say, "Taste and tell me if I've poisoned you yet." We'd laugh every night over nothing and everything. And for once, I wasn't cooking to prove something. I was cooking because it made me happy. One Friday night, as I was finishing up dinner, Ryan came home later than usual. His tie was loose, his eyes tired, but he smiled when he saw me. "Hey," he said softly, kissing my cheek. "Smells amazing in here." "Roasted salmon with honey glaze," I said, pretending to sound professional. "Chef special," he grinned. "Chef's killing it lately." We sat down, clinking glasses like it was date night, even though we were still in our sweatpants. Halfway through dinner, he got quiet, really quiet. I looked up. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then said, "You remember when I told you your cooking tasted like revenge?" I laughed nervously. Yeah. Hard to forget," he nodded, eyes soft. "That was awful of me. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you back then. I just thought we were joking." "But you weren't laughing." My fork froze mid-air. He took a deep breath. "You were trying so hard, and instead of helping, I made it harder." "I'm sorry, Elena." I didn't know what to say. For months, I dreamed of hearing those words, and now that I had, they hit deeper than I expected. "It's okay," I said quietly. "I think we both stopped listening to each other for a while." "I was angry." "You were." "You," he chuckled softly. "Fair." We finished dinner in comfortable silence. But something had shifted again, not like a dramatic movie scene, but like a door quietly unlocking somewhere inside both of us. Afterward, we cleaned up together. Ryan washed, I dried. It was such a simple thing, but it felt like teamwork, something we'd lost without realizing. When the last dish clinked into place, he leaned against the counter and said, "You know, I think I finally get it." "Get what?" I asked. He looked at me, half smiling. "Love doesn't always taste sweet, does it? Sometimes it's burnt. Sometimes it's undercooked. But if you keep trying, eventually, it's perfect." I rolled my eyes. "That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said," he grinned. "Yeah, but I'm serious. You didn't just learn to cook, you reminded me what real effort looks like." Later that night, we sat on the porch with mugs of hot chocolate. The air was cool, and the stars were just bright enough to make the world feel softer. Ryan said, "You know, Mom called me this morning." I raised an eyebrow. "Should I be scared?" He laughed. "No, actually, she said something nice. She told me, you've got a good woman there. Don't take her for granted." I blinked, surprised. "She said that?" "Yeah." I almost dropped my coffee. We both laughed, for the first time. I didn't feel like I had to earn approval anymore, not from Linda, not from Ryan. I'd finally done something for myself. And somehow, that made everyone around me love me better, too. Maybe that's the secret ingredient Madison was talking about all along, not salt, not butter, not fancy techniques. Just love, real, patient, imperfect love. A few days later, as I was making breakfast, Ryan came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and whispered, "You know, I told the guys at work about your cooking lessons." "Oh, great," I said, laughing. "Now my failures are going corporate," he chuckled. "No, they're jealous. Said their wives stopped cooking years ago. One of them even asked if you'd give lessons." I turned around, mock glaring at him. "Lessons, please." I'm still traumatized by lasagna, but his words stuck with me. Lessons. I'd learned more in that kitchen than I ever expected about food, about pride, about marriage. And maybe, just maybe, I had something worth sharing that evening. I logged into my cooking class one last time. Madison was announcing a new community group, Cooks Who Found Confidence Without Overthinking. I joined when it asked for an introduction. I typed, "Hi, I'm Elena. Once upon a time, I cooked out of revenge. Now, I cook out of love." Turns out, it tastes way better that night. As I shut down the laptop and looked over at Ryan dozing on the couch, I smiled. For the first time in forever. I wasn't trying to be a real wife. I already was one real, imperfect, human. And in that moment, I realized something I'd never forget. The best meals and the best loves aren't the ones that turn out perfect. They're the ones you learn to make better together. *A year. That's how long it had been since the dinner. Sometimes I still caught myself laughing at the memory of my first kitchen disasters: burnt rice, melted plastic spatulas, the infamous cinnamon chicken. Back then, I thought food was about performance, about proving I was enough. Now, it was about connection: messy, delicious, imperfect connection. That Saturday morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter while I flipped pancakes like a pro. Ryan wandered in, still half asleep, his hair sticking up in every direction. He said, sniffing the air. "Smells like heaven." "Correction," I said, smirking. "Smells like Saturday." He grinned and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Can you believe we used to fight over scrambled eggs?" "Technically, you fought," I said. "I plotted revenge." He laughed. "Yeah, fair." We sat at the table, eating pancakes with blueberries and way too much syrup. It was peaceful, simple, so ordinary it almost felt sacred. And then, Ryan looked up from his plate and said, "You know, I've been thinking about something." "Oh." I said. "That's never good." He smiled. "I want to host a dinner party. You, me, a few friends, maybe mom. Celebrate us, everything we've built." My fork paused midair. "You want your mom here again? You sure you're not traumatized?" He laughed. "Come on. She's practically your biggest fan now. She still talks about your herb-roasted chicken." I smiled slowly. The idea of cooking for people, real people, not just Ryan or my instructor, terrified and thrilled me. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's do it." The next week, I planned everything. Menu, decor, music, every little detail. But unlike before, it wasn't about perfection. It was about warmth. On the night of the dinner, fairy lights glowed across the backyard. Soft music played from a speaker and laughter floated through the air like something alive. I moved around the kitchen easily, now confident, calm, in control. When the timer dinged, I pulled out a perfectly golden chicken and exhaled. "Okay, Elena," I whispered. "This is your love letter. Make it count." Guests arrived. Wine poured. Plates clinked. And as everyone took their first bite, I held my breath. Ryan's friend Mark closed his eyes dramatically. "Elena, if you ever open a restaurant, I'll be your first investor." Linda dabbed her mouth with a napkin and said, "This tastes just like home." Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're a wonderful woman, dear." Ryan's lucky. I smiled, feeling tears sting my eyes. "Thank you, Linda," and I meant it. After dinner, everyone moved outside for dessert. Ryan had set up a little projector to play photos from our early years together, the awkward ones, the funny ones, even the burnt toast breakfast selfies. Laughter echoed through the yard as I leaned into him, warm under his arm. "You did it," he whispered. I shook my head. "We did it." He kissed my temple. "You know, I never asked what made you start cooking again. After everything?" I thought for a second, then smiled. "I guess I just wanted to stop letting pride speak louder than love," I said softly. "Revenge made me feel powerful for a moment. But love made me whole again." He squeezed my hand. "That's the best thing I've ever heard." Later, after everyone left and the lights twinkled quietly in the backyard, I stood in the kitchen cleaning up, humming softly. My favorite part of the night wasn't the compliments or even the food. It was watching Ryan laugh again, the same laugh I'd fallen in love with years ago. That laugh meant home. As I wiped the counter, I noticed something under the magnet on the fridge, a folded piece of paper. I frowned and opened it. It was Ryan's handwriting. Elena, you once said your food tasted like revenge. But tonight, it tasted like everything I love about you, brave, honest, and a little bit sweet. Thank you for feeding more than my stomach. You fed my heart back to life. Ryan, my vision blurred as tears spilled over. I pressed the note to my chest and laughed through the tears. Damn it, Ryan, I whispered. Now I'm crying on clean countertops. I turned off the lights, walked outside, and found him sitting under the stars. I sat beside him, leaned my head on his shoulder, and whispered, you know what I realized? What? Love's not something you serve perfect on a plate. It's something you keep stirring day after day, even when it burns a little. He smiled, pulling me close. Then I guess we'll just keep cooking together, I said. And as the crickets sang and the night settled softly around us, I finally understood. Revenge had once filled my kitchen with smoke, but love filled it with light.